We've reached another milestone for the Famicom, as this is the last fishing game. I know you're all disappointed, but I'm afraid the time for fishing on the Famicom has passed. From this point on, players would have to go to the Super Famicom if they wanted to hook virtual fish. The Blue Marlin is one of those cases where the game is incredibly rare. Copies don't come up for sale very often, and I even had to buy a boxed copy to make sure I got one. But this is also one of those cases where rare is not the same thing as expensive. While there might only be one copy for sale every couple of months, you can usually get it for less than 2,500 yen. The Blue Marlin acts as a sequel to Hot B's previous fishing games, the Black Bass 1 and 2. Though since it's been 3 years since the Black Bass 2, they've made quite a few refinements to the formula. The goal of the game is to win a fishing tournament by going out every day and catching a whole lot of marlin. Specifically, any Istio 40 day. So that's marlin, sailfish, and spearfish. When you set out from the dock, you're given multiple destinations along the Florida coast, though they're spread out across about 200 miles. Once you've chosen your region for fishing, you're on the water, which is actually a relatively small area. Maybe 2 screens by 2 screens. Holding A will throttle the boat's motor forward, and holding B will send you backward. Fishing in the Blue Marlin is done by trolling. You're dangling a line a distance behind the boat, hoping to snag something and reel it in. Hit select while you're on the water, and you get this sub-menu that lets you change how you're fishing. You can alter the weight of the line. Stronger lines are less likely to break, but also tire your fishermen out more quickly. You can set the distance of line that you're leaving behind the boat. The boat spooks fish, so the further out the line is, the more likely you are to snag something. But then it also is harder to reel it in. Your choice of bait helps attract different types of fish. And finally, you can set how deep you want your line to go. On hot days, the fish go down deeper, but in the morning and evening, they're more likely to be hunting close to the surface. Once you're set up the way that you want, it's time to troll. You'll see schools of fish, seagulls, and even the occasional whale wandering around the screen. You don't want those. The fish in the visible school aren't marlin, so if you catch one of those, you just have to throw it back. However, marlin as predators are trailing behind all of these. So what you want to do is look for the animals that you can see, and then have your line cross just behind them. If you do it right, a marlin will appear on screen, and then you have a chance to hook it and start reeling it in. When you're fighting with the fish, the A button will reel it in. B changes the drag setting on your reel from high to low. High drag means the fish has a harder time pulling out, but you have a harder time reeling in. Using the D-pad will shift your rod around to fight with the fish. Reeling in or shifting around will cost you a bit of stamina, which is the vitality bar in the middle. The picture of the fish in the lower right-hand corner is very important, since it shows you how well the hook is set, that's the line extending from their face, and the fish will have sweat drops that will tell you how tired it is. And yes, I know how silly that is. While you're fighting with the fish, there might be special events that occur. The line could slip, for example, and you lose a few dozen meters. Or the reel could start smoking, and you have to decide whether to cool it with water or relax the line a bit. These events add a bit of spice to reeling in a fish, but there's a very small quantity of them, so you'll probably see most of the events before you've even completed a day's fishing. The challenge in the Blue Marlin is getting the rhythm down to land that fish. There's 2 levels of alarms that go off if the line is getting pulled too hard, but if you let up for even a second, you're going to lose a lot of ground. And so you have to get into a certain rhythm of making adjustments. Changing the drag, changing your position in the chair, when to reel in and when to let it go slack. There's definitely a skill to it that you have to pick up. But once you have that down, it feels a bit repetitive. It isn't that complex of a game. You can only have 12 marlin on your boat, and once you've caught your limit or the day's up, you head back to the dock to weigh in your fish. If you've landed enough fish, you'll level up, which increases your stats and makes it easier to catch bigger fish, and you'll get a certain amount of points for the tournament based on the weight of the fish you pull in. When the day's done, you get a password that will let you continue from that point. Once you catch enough weight in Marlin, you'll advance to the next round of the tournament. So it goes from Florida to Hawaii, and then Hawaii again, and Hawaii once more. Yeah, they have you hang out in Hawaii a lot. Eventually you'll catch enough fish that you win the tournament, and that's the end of the game. There is a sequel to the Blue Marlin, but it was a long time coming and kind of hidden. 10 years after the Famicom game's release, Super Black Bass x2 and the Blue Marlin was released. That whole thing is the title, and it was a complete reimagining of Hot B's 8-bit fishing games for the PlayStation. Given the rarity of the Blue Marlin, it isn't surprising that this is another game that's totally forgotten in Japan. I'm going to say the Blue Marlin is the best fishing game on the Famicom. That doesn't mean a whole lot, but there you go. It's definitely approachable. I'm just not sure that it has any real lasting appeal. I feel like if you take an hour to master the systems, then you wind up just repeating the same actions for a couple of hours until it's done. I can recognize that the Blue Marlin does a decent job at being a fishing game, I just don't see myself ever going back to this one.